There is a deeply unsettling reality hiding right underneath the stadium lights every single August in the NFL. We call it the preseason, and we treat it like a warm-up, but for the guys actually down there on the turf, it is a brutal, unforgiving paradox. For a select few, this month is the realization of a lifelong dream, the exact moment they finally prove they belong on a professional 53-man roster. But for so many others, it is the exact second that same dream is violently ripped away. The Houston Texans just walked into their preseason opener against the Los Angeles Chargers, carrying a type of pressure this franchise hasn't felt in a very long time. Genuine, heavy, Super Bowl expectations. Coming off that spectacular rookie campaign from quarterback C.J. Stroud and the massive culture shift orchestrated by head coach DeMeco Ryans, the temperature in Houston has reached an absolute boiling point. Every single snap is being put under a microscope. Now, you look at the final scoreboard, 27-7 in favor of Los Angeles, and it's easy to panic. But anyone who understands the incredibly complex mechanics of building a championship-caliber football team knows that the preseason score is completely irrelevant. The real story of this game isn't found in the points. It's found in a devastating, heart-wrenching injury, some incredibly intense positional battles, and a sudden, high-stakes ripple effect that just forced the Houston front office into rapid-fire crisis management. The tension underlying every single snap we just witnessed is rooted in a harsh, inescapable truth. A player's entire season and potentially their entire professional career could literally end on the very next play. I need you to think about what's actually happening out there. For the guys fighting at the absolute bottom of the depth chart, every block, every route, and every single tackle is a high-speed job interview being broadcast on national television. When DeMeco Ryans chose to rest his marquee starters, superstars like Stroud, Will Anderson, and Daniel Hunter, he was deliberately turning up the heat on everybody else. He was saying, the door is open, who is going to step through it? But that immense opportunity comes hand in hand with the sheer, undeniable physical violence of the sport. We're talking about world-class athletes colliding at maximum velocity. It only takes one awkward step, one bad angle, or one weird interaction with the turf to completely rewrite a player's life. You can practically feel the anxiety radiating from the sideline during these games because the line between securing a multi-million-dollar contract and packing your bags is razor thin. Section 1. The key moment. Graham Mertz's season in jeopardy. Late in the second quarter, the cinematic tension of this game just ground to a devastating halt. The Texans were trying to mount a drive, and second-year quarterback Graham Mertz was at the helm. He had put together a decent showing up to that point, completing 4 of his 7 passes for 23 yards. Mertz drops back, the pocket immediately begins to collapse around him, and he does what any desperate player fighting for his NFL life does. He scrambles to try and make a play. But he goes down hard, and he doesn't get up. Immediately, the medical staff rushes the field, and a heavy silence just falls over the entire stadium. Fast forward to the post-game press conference, and the air was completely sucked out of the room when DeMeco Ryans confirmed the absolute nightmare scenario. The medical staff fears Mertz has suffered a torn ACL. Now for Mertz, the heartbreak here is vastly compounded when you look at the arduous journey he took just to get to this exact moment. He was drafted in the 6th round back in 2025 as an underdog out of Florida and Wisconsin. He spent almost his entire rookie season stashed away on the injured list, battling a lingering leg issue from his senior year in college. He endured the grueling, incredibly lonely rehab process behind the scenes, putting in hours and hours in the empty facility while the rest of the team was out making a massive playoff push. He finally came into this 2026 preseason completely healthy. He was ready to prove he deserved to be the ultimate safety net behind Stroud and Davis Mills. To suffer a feared ACL tear right at the starting line of his ultimate redemption season is a massive emotional blow, throwing his entire 2026 campaign into jeopardy before the regular season even officially begins. Section 2. Immediate impact. The QB3 ripple effect. In the modern National Football League, a front office simply cannot afford to pause and mourn. The immediate impact of this injury sent absolute shockwaves straight up to General Manager Nick Casario's office. When a contending team loses its QB3, it loses a highly vital emergency contingency plan. Look, C.J. Stroud is securely entrenched as one of the brightest, most dynamic young stars in the entire league, and Davis Mills is a highly capable, highly experienced backup. Their jobs are absolutely not in question. But NFL history heavily dictates that you do not try to navigate a brutal, grinding 17-game gauntlet without a reliable third quarterback somewhere in your building. The Texans now have a glaring, immediate vacancy. But here is the fascinating part. Caserio is armed with the ultimate luxury in modern roster building. He has $25 million in available cap space.
Because Houston possesses a franchise quarterback who is currently playing on a highly affordable rookie contract, they are not suffocated by the salary cap in the way that other heavy contenders are. Finances are absolutely not a hurdle for this front office. This massive financial leverage means Caserio and Ryans can surgically evaluate the open market and sign whoever they genuinely believe is the perfect fit to solve the steps crisis before week 1. And they can do it without ever having to restructure current contracts or compromise the franchise's long-term future.
And the wheels are already turning rapidly in Houston. The front office has actively begun evaluating the free agent quarterback market, conducting urgent, last-minute workouts to identify that new emergency arm. Two notable names that have recently crossed their radar are Jake Haener and Seth Hennigan. Haener, who was originally drafted by the New Orleans Saints, was waived by the Kansas City Chiefs in May and just recently auditioned for the Baltimore Ravens. Coming from systems that heavily emphasize quick processing and timing, his specific skill set presents a really intriguing theoretical match for offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick's scheme. Slowick's system demands immense precision from the pocket, and Haener has a background in exactly that. Hennigan, meanwhile, signed a futures deal with the Indianapolis Colts back in January, but was ultimately cut in June. This entire process really highlights the unglamorous, high-stress reality of the NFL fringe. These guys are flying across the country at a moment's notice, studying playbooks in hotel rooms, fighting desperately for a professional lifeline. With Mertz sidelined, one of these journeymen, or perhaps another veteran who is currently sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring, is highly likely to be wearing deep steel blue very, very soon.
Section 3. Going deeper. Preseason winners and losers.
Now, we have to look at the rest of the roster because this preseason opener wasn't just about the heartbreak inside the quarterback room. The NFL preseason is a highly complex, hyper-competitive ecosystem. While the Mertz injury dominated the post-game headlines, there were 52 other roster spots being violently contested out there on the field. We have to look past the scoreboard to see who actually stepped up when the stadium lights came on and who shrank under the immense pressure. Let's start on the winner's side. You have to look at rookie tight end Marlon Klein. As a second-round pick, the expectations placed upon his shoulders are already sky-high. But he delivered the absolute best offensive highlight of the entire night for Houston, a brilliant, explosive 31-yard reception right over the middle of the field from Davis Mills. For a rookie making his professional debut, that kind of dynamic, field-stretching play is exactly what the offensive coaching staff needs to see. But on the flip side, we have to talk about the edge rusher depth because it is currently a glaring, flashing red flag. With defensive cornerstones like Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, and Jadeveon Clowney getting the night off, this was the golden moment for the backups to prove they could hold the line. In DeMeco Ryans' aggressive defensive scheme, generating organic edge pressure without having to heavily rely on the blitz is the absolute bedrock of their success. Yet, the backups failed miserably to generate consistent pressure against the Chargers' reserves. They managed only 2 total sacks as an entire team. And concerningly, one of those sacks had to come from interior lineman Naquan Jones. When we break down the fringe players who absolutely capitalized on their incredibly limited opportunities, wide receiver Jared Wayne is making a deeply compelling case for himself. In a game where the offense struggled mightily to produce, they only scored on a goal line pass to Justin Watson, Wayne was a rare, remarkably consistent bright spot. He pulled in 3 crucial receptions for 19 yards. Now, that might not sound like a massive stat line, but you have to understand the context. The Texans boast an absolutely loaded receiver room, featuring Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. To survive cutdown day in a room that crowded, a depth player must show total, unwavering reliability. And Wayne did exactly that. Defensively, 5th-round rookie safety Kamari Ramsey stepped up brilliantly. He made the absolute play of the night for the Houston defense, perfectly jumping a route and intercepting Chargers quarterback Trey Lance in the second quarter. That interception was Houston's one and only takeaway of the entire game. In a modern NFL secondary that highly values versatile ball hawks who can instantly flip the field, Ramsey just elevated himself from a nervous bubble player to a very strong bet to make the final 53-man roster. But here's the brutal flip side of the coin. For every player who firmly secures their spot, someone else watches their lifelong dream slowly slip away. Linebacker Jamal Hill desperately needed a statement performance against the Chargers. With starting linebackers Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o both resting, Hill was given a massive, wide-open window to prove his worth in the middle of the defense. Instead, he struggled mightily to read the Chargers' zone-blocking schemes, consistently finding himself washed completely out of the running lanes. He finished the night with just 2 solitary tackles, getting thoroughly outproduced by secondary options like Aiden Fisher and Wade Waters, who simply played with better pad level and better gap integrity. Returning to the edge rushers, the data is just as bleak. Out of that entire developmental unit, only Solomon Byrd managed to record more than 2 tackles. The reality of the NFL is incredibly stark. When the high-priced starters rest, the backups are essentially handed the keys to the franchise for the night. If those backups cannot drive the car against opposing reserves in August, the coaching staff will absolutely not trust them in January during a tightly contested playoff run. Section 4. What happens next? Finalizing the 53-man roster. This all brings us to the absolute most intense, unforgiving phase of the NFL calendar. The film from this game is currently being dissected, frame by painful frame, inside NRG Stadium. General Manager Nick Caserio and Coach DeMeco Ryans are not dealing in emotions right now. They are engaging in brutal, strategic calculations. They are actively identifying the glaring weak links exposed by Los Angeles, and they are cross-referencing that data with the talent currently available on the open market. The window to prove you belong on this contending team is rapidly slamming shut, and that leaves us with a massive, franchise-altering question. With just 2 preseason games left on the schedule and a staggering $25 million in cap space sitting in their pocket, how exactly will the Texans patch this alarming lack of defensive edge depth, replace their suddenly injured QB3, and finalize a roster that is truly capable of winning a Super Bowl? Do they trust the developmental guys to fix their technique in practice next week, or do they aggressively deploy that massive cap space to sign proven, battle-tested veterans right now? The clock is ticking, the pressure inside the building is immense, and every single decision made from here on out carries massive championship consequences. Thank you for joining me for this explainer here on NFL Nexus. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on every major roster battle, every injury fallout, and the strategic moves that define the league, make sure you subscribe, like this explainer, comment your opinion down below on what you think the Texans should do next, and support the channel by becoming a member. The preseason is just heating up, and we've got a lot more ground to cover. I'll see you in the next one.